So many of our favorites to watch. Oh look, now they're being bashed. I guess that's what we should expect on the Bullied Nostalgia Podcast. Hello everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of Bullied Nostalgia, the podcast where John...
Hi.
Chance...
Hello.
Kylen...
Hi.
And Tim, that's me, sit down and talk about stuff. Normally, we talk about things that John and I treasured as children, but this episode's going to be a little bit different. When I started uploading these episodes to an RSS feed, it asked me for what season and what episode each one was numerically. And I realized that maybe there would be more than one season. So that's what we're doing today. We're essentially ending season 1. And rather than talking about a show or movie that John and I loved as kids, we're just kind of going to go back and look at what the last 12 episodes have been like and see what our experiences were making a podcast for the first time. So if you want to peek behind the curtain on what this show is like, or if you yourself are wondering what it's like to try and make a podcast yourself, we learned the hard way some things that work well and don't. And I'm not saying that the show even works in its current state, but it certainly works better than the first episodes did. The stuff that I cut out of them was us trying to come up with a name for the show.
You were really committed to the idea of nostalgia being wet.
Yeah. The initial show was supposed to be soggy nostalgia.
Yeah. And then you were like, okay, maybe we could do wet nostalgia.
I did not say wet nostalgia.
It was moist nostalgia.
It was dank and decrepit nostalgia. It was not any better. We were all terrible.
So by the time I was editing the episodes, we had settled on a name and John and I had recorded the jingle at the start. So the first few episodes, we don't call it by its name because I thought
they were terrible. The worst names. Really.
I don't know why you guys didn't like them. Okay, well, I don't know how we want to go about doing this. Does anybody have anything that they want to say about what you thought recording a podcast was going to be like before we started doing it?
None of us have any experience in this field, so it was all very strange the first couple episodes, because it's kind of hard to have a conversation with people in a room while also simultaneously making that conversation available for people not in the room and that we don't know.
Yeah. There are some things that I learned early on in episodes. It was one of the earlier episodes that we had talked for about a half hour, and then John said, well, why don't we tell people what this movie is about that we just watched?
Yeah.
And I said, oh yeah, we should summarize these types of things. So just things that you don't think about, you take for granted, I guess. So certainly there's more of a format to the show than there was initially. Chance summarizes everything.
Except for when Chatty John is in town.
And Kylen talks about cookies.
He does.
It is kind of interesting thinking that we're talking in a way that other people are listening to us. Because I feel like after watching a movie, we would typically like chat and have banter, but not like, let's sit around the table for an hour intentionally and talk about aspects of a movie.
Something that's been really satisfying for me in a weird way
is when you say something that we finish.
Okay, that is true.
I wanted to try it.
that is 100%
true. True.
It does feel good.
There was an episode where I was talking about Disney making a movie that was too mature. And Kylen chimed in immediately and said Black Cauldron. And I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about. And there was a time when I was talking about how there was a movie that came out in 1993 and John jumped in and said Jurassic Park. And those are really satisfying when you guys jump in when I wasn't expecting you to. It definitely makes it feel like there's some cohesiveness to this chaos. But that was not what I was going to say. No, I don't remember what I was going to say.
In a weird
so
sense.
I, for the first time, saw a few episodes of Love is Blind, the reality TV show.
Okay.
Weird choice.
And,
Interesting segue.
What season did you start on?
Season 3?
Oh, okay. I never watched season.
Yeah. So, anyways, it's just weird to think that people can be flirting, starting to date, be engaged, marry, and it's all on camera. And
What does this have to do with our situation, John?
I think what John's trying to say.
What's happening?
I think
Are you trying to say that it's hard to be casual and natural when you're recording for an audience?
sure,
Okay.
yes,
you
yes.
just didn't need to go so hard down the route of love. I don't know.
I'm recording this for my true love right now. I hope you find it wherever you are. No, what I was going to say, I do remember.
There you go, you're welcome.
Yeah, obviously. What I was going to say is when we started recording these, it was just for our self-gratification. It was something that, you know, down the road, I wanted to be able to listen to these conversations that we had had. And the safest place to put that it won't get deleted off a hard drive, is the internet. And so I uploaded them to keep them safe for the future. And then people started listening to the podcast, which was
that
unexpected.
We didn't ask to listen.
Yeah, that's right. So it was one of those things where it felt really weird that we've created and developed these inside jokes in our conversation. In the Odyssey episode, we're talking about super soakers.
And then I said, you could point one of those things at France and some poor baguette.
I say some poor baguette on a regular basis and nobody has any clue what I'm talking about. It's weird to know, though, that somewhere...
There is a person who understands that joke.
Exactly. We actually have a decent number of people who are listening in Australia, which I have no idea how that happened, but hello to you, or whoever you are. So I went back and I listened to the episodes. John mentioned that he has 2. Is there maybe some unfinished conversations about some of the episodes?
Paperweight. You could use a floppy disk as a paperweight. I forgot the second half of the word, and you guys judged me for it.
Obviously,
Paperweight.
this is keeping Kaya.
It is. Somebody in Australia is thinking of me.
Someone in Australia thinks I don't know what a floppy disk is.
I'm crying. Okay, paperweight.
Every night, Kylen, as he goes to his bed, they're probably waking up right now. They're thinking about my knowledge of floppy disks.
I was thinking about a couple things about the Superman episode. So in the most recent episode of Reboot, we were talking about American regulations, what was allowed and what wasn't, right? They weren't allowed to show guns, breaking glass, nudity, all of those things. And I was thinking about how that ties back to the Superman movie and how he scratched that guy on the neck and then you scratched a kid on the neck at the playground.
Right.
John is the reason.
Do you think that you had anything to do with American regulations for kids' TV?
Even while regulated, John's wrath cannot be controlled.
No, but seriously, we did talk a little bit about the memory erasing kiss.
Really weird.
And when I was listening to the podcast last time, I had this thought.
I don't remember any of this.
I got kissed?
Yeah.
No. That's funny. But no, my thought was, how do you think Superman figured out he had that power? Like, how many times do you think he erased Lois's memory by accident before you realize that every time he kisses, or maybe it's not every time?
Yeah, can he control whether there's a memory wipe?
Does he have to be like really intentional about it?
So can he kiss her on the cheek and she lose her memory? Or does it have to be on the lips?
Then she loses her eyesight.
Considering, if we're under the semantics that he can control it, does that mean this kiss has other physical properties? Because it has to be different physically in some way in order to have different effects.
It's
mentally.
a kiss with tongue.
The kiss doesn't matter. It's
It's
just
a
the
French
tongue.
kiss. Some poor baguette.
Good lord.
That joke was not intentional, but it really stuck the landing.
Wait, some poor baguette. What are you implying Superman does with baguette?
That was his tongue.
Gross. This is getting off the rails quickly.
In listening to the episodes, Tim, you've said that the first couple episodes were pretty rough, but I enjoyed them. I feel like they were charming. I was charming.
I like myself. The whole dialogue or lore that has been built up about me falling asleep in movies all started with Superman. And to this day, I still don't know if I fell asleep or not.
Chance, the thing is
I'm
that
pretty
you're
sure we all know you did. It looks like you're falling asleep right now.
However, I would say it is not often that I fall asleep in a movie and then my mind recreates the plot of the movie. Normally, if I fall asleep in an episode of The Odyssey, I just don't know what happened in that episode.
Sounds like you want to watch The Odyssey.
Yeah, Odyssey was a fever dream. I want to remember that.
I already mentioned that I love that Super Soaker conversation in The Odyssey. I reference some poor baguette more often than I should. The other big payoff from the Odyssey episode that I didn't expect was look out for weirdos, which has become our catchphrase.
Episode
Sometimes we just forget about it.
What was our next episode?
Land Before Time 3.
Land Before Time
I know because
3.
the
Three for
Dougal's
three.
come in threes.
I remember because I hated it.
Yeah.
I think every season there needs to be a Land Before Time movie.
I think
Yes.
we should throw John out of the podcast so we don't have to watch any more Land Before Time.
You know what? I honestly am on board with this mentality.
I'm not.
Not
We just progressively
Not
watch
only
worse ones.
is Land Before Time one of our most popular episodes.
It is?
It is.
I'm getting on the Land Before Time train. Let's do this. Australians are here for Land Before Time.
Money. If our,
And more
podcast,
beers, here we come.
if our podcast made any money, maybe. Not only is it one of our most popular episodes, it started us down this path
Of Dougal.
of Dougal. And I don't want to try and capture lightning in a bottle again, but Dougal happened on episode 3.
And then on
And then
6.
3 episodes later, on episode 6, we did Quest for Camelot, where Dougal came back around and was in the conversation again.
Episode 9 was
And then
Dougal?
3 episodes later, we did episode 9, Dougal. Every 3 episodes told the story of Dougal. And those 3 episodes are maybe my favorite episodes. They have this through line that is very fun to listen to. And I laugh a lot throughout all 3 of them. So I doubt we would somehow recapture that by watching another Land Before Time movie. But I, strangely enough, have nostalgia for 3 episodes from the Bullied Nostalgia podcast. And if watching another Land Before Time movie for you will rekindle that nostalgia, I'm game.
What's next on the
Movies?
Yes.
We did Batman after Land Before Time 3.
I do not have great memory of that one, and because I
Yeah.
think it was very tired when we recorded.
For context, we were in the middle of moving John. It was a late night. I said, we got to record this now or we're never going to get to. So we recorded the episode. Chance was half asleep. John was completely asleep. It was a good movie, but it was one of our weaker episodes. And I would say,
I would personally say our weakest.
well, it led into Fast and the Furious,
That's fair.
which I have plenty of regrets about.
Talking about Fast and the Furious, don't do what we did.
I would like to hear what John has to say about Fast and Furious.
Oh yeah,
Not
'cause you
having
watched
to have endured it, but just listen to our episode.
Yeah, I'm really glad I missed it. It sounded like a really painful experience. I'm so sorry.
Sorry for your loss.
Why do you sound sarcastic?
Actually,
Sorry, don't do it again. No, I'd hate to hear about that.
Actually, Fast and the Furious taught me something that I think still holds true. Bad movies are only good when you're playing a game with them. You know, the reason why The Room was so popularized as a bad movie is because you were making fun of it as you went.
Uh-huh.
If you wanted to watch The Room as a movie, it would be bad. But if you wanted to watch The Room as an experience, it would be good.
I would have to describe the experience of watching all Fast and the Furious movies as taking 12 drugs and then trying to herd cats while simultaneously being punched in the face by everyone you know and love and then having Vin Diesel spit on you.
You getting spit on in your version? It sounds moist or like soggy.
Soggy Fast and the Furious.
I don't want to ever do that again. But I appreciate that we experimented and did something different. So I will leave the door open that if someone has a fun idea on what we could do differently with the show next season, this goes to the listeners too. I will allow it. We'll see what happens. Probably regret.
We could watch a movie, but just listen to the audio. And
Or
then,
what if we watched a movie and had a different audio playing?
Like we watched the sequel movie with like the audio of the first
No,
movie.
you're making this too terrible. So we watch it once with visuals. only
And then
with
the next
audio.
time we don't watch it with audio? That sounds terrible.
No, oh my goodness. You know, this is a choose your own adventure idea where you get to finish
John,
my idea.
stop trying to...
I told you it's very satisfying when other people finish my sentence. You're doing it wrong.
No, well, you know what?
Not satisfying enough.
I'm
John.
not going to finish my idea and just let everyone who's listening come up with their own idea to finish off mine.
Ooh, what if, in a similar vein to GoldenEye, on occasion, if there is a direct-to-console game that came out about a movie, we have to play the game first and then watch the movie.
Oh, what a way to
it's based
ruin
on.
a movie.
I know! If we're ruining movies already.
That's pretty nostalgic in all honesty, because that's the way video games were. They'd come out with a very bad version of it
Yeah, 'cause
before the movie came out.
we
You'd
could play
it.
pod racers and then watch the Star Wars movies.
So episode 6 was Quest for Camelot.
One of my favorites.
It's a very good episode that I have some minor regrets about.
Yeah.
You okay?
It's my eye. It's been really sore lately.
Well, that's why
Because
you
of
look
my
like
hay
you're falling
fever.
asleep.
Yeah. You took some meds already?
Not today.
Inject him straight into your
I ran out.
Oh. I asked you if you had meds and you said yes.
I had them yesterday. I didn't realize I didn't have any more.
We're keeping this in the podcast.
Wow.
Put the pill in your mouth and spit it
Maybe we won't cut this. I really want to see Jen spit up meds that I gave him. Back to moist nostalgia. Soggy,
talking.
soggy, soggy, soggy.
Stop talking, please.
How close are you?
Oh, got
Oh,
it.
you swallowed it.
Oh,
Attaboy.
goodness. Why were you trying so hard to make me laugh and waste that? Good lord. Okay.
It was worth it.
What were we...
Quest for Camelot.
Right. Okay. I think back to Quest for Camelot and laugh a lot at some of those jokes. Like, "Brr, brr, brr, the king's sword needs to have a bath." I laugh about that so often because it's so funny.
Yeah. But unfortunately, someone cut it too long.
Yeah, that's my one regret about Quest for Camelot. Honestly, I think that is one of the most natural conversations that we have had on the podcast. Normally in the podcast, we talk for about an hour and I cut about 20 minutes of it. And when I was editing that episode, I listened to it once and I noticed that it had, I think it was 47 minutes long. And I thought, oh, that's about the same length as the rest of the episodes. So I just published it as is.
Oh, there's no cuts?
You know, it's a pretty strong episode considering that there's no cuts. But it wasn't until after I hit publish that I realized that it's 10 minutes longer than every other episode. And so I wish I had just cut some stuff. I don't even know what it would have been off the top of my head.
Pauses, probably.
But we had lots of good jokes in there. I just feel like we could have had more jokes per minute if I had shaved it down.
I was listening to it again, and there was that one, like, never-ending story troll guy. And then you'd mentioned that you forgot about him, and I was like, oh yeah, that guy.
And I wish I could have cut him from the podcast episode, but he's the root of the conversation of you lose a star for every fart joke, so he has to stay, I guess.
Oh my goodness. The scene where she's running away on her horse and the grunts follow behind her on their pigs. That scene is glorious.
It's still very good.
It's hilarious.
Episode 7 was Christmas in Wonderland.
Ooh.
And
Don't open the red door.
Don't open the red door. And then we had Honey, We Shrunk Ourselves. And it was very funny. Chance believed that they could fall from any distance because their terminal velocity would be so low. And then I happened to be perusing the internet and I came across a video that I sent to John that said ants cannot die from falling because their terminal velocity is so low that they can be dropped from any height and it will not hurt them. And so I was like, there it is.
I had no idea what that video was referencing because it was like 4 months later.
I was perusing the internet. It was a crazy coincidence. But like 6 years afterwards.
Sounds about right. And then, of course, episode 9 is Dougal.
Hey, Dougal.
What's funny is that I never thought that this would be a Dougal podcast.
Going into it, you never thought our time would be devoted solely to talking about Dougal.
Yeah. But that is easily my favorite episode. The first 15 minutes is just us joking about a terrible movie. And then it just goes off the rails and it's just so naturally funny, making fun of one thing or another.
After Dougal,
Spaceballs.
Which is still pretty recent.
Spaceballs is one of my favorites. Solely because John gets a spotlight and he works the stage.
Yeah, we get both catty and chatty, John.
No, we also get Shatty John, apparently.
John, what do you want to tell us about Spaceballs?
I don't know. It depends what kind of mood you get me in, I guess.
I liked it. I'm charming.
Yes, great work, John. You do all the heavy lifting in that episode, whether you wanted to or not.
Like, at a certain point, I'm genuinely wondering if you were actually frustrated at us, or if you were just, playing the bit.
Oh, and John leads most of that episode, and it looks like it's about to come to a very natural end. And then John runs out of the room and comes back with a stack of Land Before Time VHSs. And it's like, of course, we couldn't go one episode with a controlled ending. We have to derail every episode. Even the one you're hosting. And then GoldenEye.
I remember laughing a lot for GoldenEye.
Okay.
My feelings towards the video game may be polluting that memory a lot, because playing the game and recording the podcast are very directly linked, since we did one and then did the other right back to back. In fact, that's why we watched the movie and put it in the podcast was because we were playing the video game.
We talked a lot about Femke Jensen movie.
We did.
John
We
with the
really
IMDb page.
Yeah.
And then most recently, the reboot episode. Honestly, I feel like I have the least to contribute about the reboot episode because it's so fresh.
I remember
Because-
laughing about the terrible choices for episodes John gave, and then the plot-heavy, meaningful choices that Dad gave.
Oh my goodness.
I'm just saying, John, for a show where the graphics look terrible, having our first episode be one where it drops down to 8-bit graphics intentionally
It was
doesn't
sickening.
help. It was very hard to watch.
I think it was important that we picked reboot episodes that were like light and fun. Tim's episodes were these gripping story moments where things shifted, but you need to be invested in the everyday of these characters before you could care about Tim's episodes.
How many
You're
episodes did you
welcome.
remember from your childhood that you made us watch, John?
Did you remember the 8-bit one? Or did you just choose that one randomly?
I read synopsis online and
You're like, oh, this one could be cool.
Oh yeah, he makes everyone stupid and the graphics look worse. Perfect, let's
I'll
watch
have you
that.
know these synopses also had scores, and that one scored pretty well. So for
Pretty
all
well
you,
for
That man needs to be fired.
you can all say what you want, but the world says differently. The world.
Are you part of the world? Did you have a very satisfying experience?
Does Roscoe appear in any of the audio, or did you cut him all out?
He is definitely in the episode with Honey, We Shrunk Ourselves.
Roscoe's a pet.
Roscoe's
my
a
dog.
Yeah, he's Chance's dog because John gets really bothered by the fact that if you threw a dog off the Empire State Building, it would break its legs. And I said, why wouldn't you be upset that throwing an elephant off would make it explode? And he says, well, I just have a closer attachment to dogs.
And Roscoe's like right there.
Yeah, Roscoe was sitting on one of the chairs at the table at the time. And so that became a joke throughout that episode that we were soothing Roscoe, but not Carl, the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
So I do want to open the floor up to our listeners, though. I did something that I've wanted to do for a while. I made a way for people to contact us. I set up an email address. It's bulliedpod@gmail.com.
Tell me how many different versions did you try before you landed on Bullied Pod?
800. All I knew for sure is I didn't want nostalgia in the name because
nobody knows that spell.
yeah, I've had a hard enough time spelling that name for this stupid podcast.
Spodcast.
Spudcast.
So I didn't want to have to try and drag people through the mud of them learning how to spell nostalgia properly. Gmail, getting to it late, trying to make a new name for an email at this point in the game. I tried so many things that honestly, by the time I found one, bulliedpod@gmail.com, I literally said cool and then closed my eyes and went to sleep. So if you have ideas for episodes that you want to see us do, like an experimentation like Fast and the Furious was, or if you want to back John's claim that all episodes should be Land Before Time,
Or
All episodes.
Well, I wasn't
9
going to get
episodes.
greedy, but
no,
that's an option.
I'm confident during the Spaceballs episode you said, let's start a petition, no more episodes until they're Land Before Time.
9 episodes Land Before Time. Episode of Dougal.
Or if, back when Chatty John was just becoming a thing, we started that dialogue because a listener told us that they wanted to hear more of John and that they were their favorite person on the podcast. So if you want to
Thanks for the smile, John.
draw some attention to someone and you want to say, hey, I'd really like to hear Kylen host an episode.
please no.
So I don't know what's popular in Australia, but if you have something that you want us to take a swing at, it's bulliedpod pod, no underscore, no dots, just the word bullied, BULLIED, POD, as in short for podcast, at gmail.com.
Whatever happened to our alleged mascots that were coming out at some point?
I have been very busy. Kylan's character is 90% done.
Ooh.
No one else's are even off the starting line. So someday is the answer when I have time to have a life. And I mean, that's really something about this podcast is there's been several episodes that release 2 weeks apart. And then there are episodes that release 2 months apart. Because this is just a hobby for all of us. It just is whenever we have time to get together and whenever we have time to watch things, record things, and then whenever I have time to sit down and edit them. So John and I have been talking about ideas on how to do things a little differently in season 2. So I'm excited to see those types of things come to fruition.
Personally, I would really like professional microphone equipment for when we're all at different places. So it
Yeah,
doesn't
you're not
sound
going to get that.
over the phone.
Hey, Chances almost got his first job. And when he does,
Almost pretending. to
I
get his
almost
first
have
job.
a disposable income.
he's applied for places. So he can help finance the better gear. Right now, we just record off of my phone. It sits in the middle of the table. So audio quality is not phenomenal.
And for auditory noise counseling, we have this
Counseling?
wonderful $10 sweater that my dad has worn for the past
It's not
4
$10.
years.
It's a way more expensive than $10. I'll tell you that. The budget on this podcast went up exponentially by using this hoodie. So maybe we end this off like our normal podcast
We should rate it.
and we review or
Yeah.
rate our experience over the last year.
Chance, your 11-point scale. Come on, let's see.
It is an 11-point scale thing. I would say, like many works of art, there are parts of it that I liked and there are parts of it that I did not like. I would say at the worst, our podcast dropped to about a 2. That was Fast and the Furious.
Okay.
However, there are parts that I have thoroughly enjoyed and laughed so much at that they only deserve a 5. So ultimately, it's one of those things where I don't think I could rate an entire 12 hours of media in a single number because that's not doing it justice.
Kylen?
You see, the really difficult thing is that we've got a whole bunch of different flavors that we're working with. We've got a whole bunch of different stories and concepts that all tie back to one another. So stop laughing at me.
M&M cookie, all the colors.
I'd rather say it's more like a box of cookies. Like, you can't define it by one cookie. Sure, some of them might taste better than others. I'm looking at you, Fast and the Furious.
Tastes the best.
Yeah, of course.
This feels a lot like what I said, just cookie flavored.
Which one was it? The Lego one?
Yeah.
Lego cookie.
Not edible. Would not recommend.
Yeah, some of them are burned.
Some
Some of the cookies are on fire. Don't
Some of
worry
the
about
cookie
them.
is a rock.
That was GoldenEye. Do not eat. Do not eat this movie.
All right, John?
What's your
Podcast.
podcast experience? What's the last year been like for you?
I'll just talk about my feelings.
Okay.
When I was 8 years old, I felt really sad about some things.
I just love that I get to revisit movies from my childhood. I think that just makes my heart warm and happy. And while I won't be returning to some of those movies ever again, I just feel good.
Okay.
And happy.
Got a new analogy for the show. Okay? Okay.
John, what do you want to say? Never mind.
Okay.
More
My
cookies.
feelings.
The show is kind of like a cement truck, okay? Okay, you're taking this old road, and people have loved it for many a year, but you are replacing the old stuff with something new. Sure, the old may now be hated, but the new is really good.
Do you want to speak in what are your feelings, John?
No.
Sorry, Chatty
Okay,
John.
it's okay.
Feelings John never comes out for this reason.
For me, this has been a very positive experience. I feel like the boys and I have a relationship that I never expected to have. When you guys were 1 and 2 and 4 and 5 and 8 and 9.
What happened to 6?
The lost years.
Those are future podcast episodes.
Chance's childhood, the lost levels.
But when you guys were kids, the relationship was always evolving. And I remember one time Chance was not in a very good mood. And you guys were teenagers.
Oh.
And he said something, and I said, whoa, whoa, whoa. Grouches of the world unite. And Kylen said, Dad, did you just reference Sesame Street, Follow That Bird? And I said, yes. Yes, I did. And my heart grew 2 sizes that day because 80% of the things that I say are pop culture references, and most people don't chase me far enough down that rabbit hole to get them.
However, we were raised by this man.
Yes. And so it was this weird realization that, oh, the boys and I are going to share pop culture references now. You know, life was trying during COVID, and we experienced new and different things, but then we started filming movies together and writing scripts. And then we started a podcast together. And just certainly, I never expected to have this type of relationship with you guys, but I really appreciate the time that we've had together. It means a lot to me whether we're watching good movies that I liked, like Batman or Goldeneye, or movies that were terrible, like Land Before Time 3 or Dougal. It's been a really fun experience being at this table. So the fact that we're now sharing this podcast with other people out there, I think we've had about 1,000 listens at this point. That's not viral or anything like that. That's not this big thing on the internet that's going to make us fame. But still, like, that's not something I ever intended. So largely for me, this podcast has been really gratifying and really positive just to have quality time with the 3 of you. But weirdly, also with a bunch of randoms in Australia. It's weird, you guys. It's not even people in the same part of Australia.
We're
It's
looking
like
at you, Michael. It's all you.
Look your alligator.
If there's someone in Australia named Michael who listens to us, he's going to be really weirded out right now. Thank you to the 3 of you. Thank you to the listeners out there
In Australia.
and North America. We've had very few in Europe, but there are a couple of the people who accidentally listen to us in Europe, I think. Yeah, I guess if I was using my normal rating system, I would say yes, I would do it again. I would record this podcast again. I would listen to it again. Do you have some feelings you want to talk about, John?
Yes, Sadie John.
Look out for strangers.
No.
Don't.
Look out for
Get
dogs
out.
falling off of Empire State Building. Look out for Dougals. Look out for, I don't know, we've done a lot of warnings.
Elephants.
But yes, look out for weirdos.
Wait, who's supposed to say that every time?
You were saying it,
I was saying
and
it?
then I kept like motioning to you, and you'd be like, "Oh, what?" So then
You
finally
can
I was
cut
like,
things out. You can
okay,
just say Chance. Say look out for
anybody
weird.
say it.
Chance is always asleep when you ask him.
Look out for weirdos.